fictional director of NASA. And they point to him as seeing him as sort of obstructive or an antagonist, but I wasn't trying to portray that at all. He's doing his job. His job is, there's a point at which, I don't want to give spoilers for the 3 people in the audience who haven't read the book yet, but there's a point at which they need to make a decision, and they have to decide between having a very high chance that Watney will die, or a smaller chance that all 6 of their astronauts will die. So they have to decide between one guy probably dying, and the other 5 definitely coming home safe, or risking the lives of all 6. And Teddy says, no, we're not gonna risk 5 lives to try to save 1. And a lot of people read that and perceive it as being like, oh, destructive or cowardly or bad in some way. But I disagree. I think that from his point of view as an administrator, is the correct call. You say like, we want to minimize the loss of life in this already disastrous mission. And so I just wanted to kind of like go to bat for Teddy. He's not an antagonist.
I don't know. I understand and agree with you that there was very satisfying part of the book that everyone was kind of doing what they were supposed to do, or in some cases going beyond that and really taking the leap. Be interested in your role, if any, in the movie, which comes out in November and has the potential, whoever knows, to really bring an enormous amount of attention to Mars in a way that it hasn't in fiction in a long, long time. So.
Yes, I think hopefully. I mean, remember, I didn't write this book to attempt to spur interest in manned spaceflight or stuff like that. I wrote it as all of my stories are just solely for the purpose of entertainment. I'm never trying to push a political agenda or make a point. I'm just like, I want you to read this and think that was cool, and then you put the book down and move on to your next book. As for my part in the movie, my job primarily was to cash the check. And I did that admirably well. But yeah, they didn't have to do anything. Like I have no say over, I have no say or authority in any way. They chose to include me in a few ways, which was just them utilizing resources in the way they thought was best, and also just them being cool. And they sent me the screenplay for my feedback. They made some changes based on my feedback. I talked back and forth a lot with Drew Goddard, who wrote the adaptation. I'm not really allowed to talk about the scripts too much, but I can say that I'm very happy with how it turned out, and I think the movie's going to be great. I think it will spur interest in Mars exploration, partially because we haven't had that many movies that portray space travel very accurately lately. Now there have been attempts recently with like Interstellar was like kind of 50-50. Interstellar was like, half hard science fiction, and then the other half is like really esoteric. Gravity was pretty cool. It had a few errors that Neil deGrasse Tyson can tell you all about, but they were, less blatant, less bold. It's not like they had warp drives, right? And a lot of the movies related to Mars have had some like almost fantasy elements or things that are completely unrealistic, and weren't attempting to be realistic. They weren't trying to portray a realistic, trip to Mars. They're like, oh, we're going to Mars in